Hey guys, it's Camus, and here we have a study based on an endgame study from Korolikov, who was a prize winner in 1937. Unfortunately, when I was analyzing this problem, I found a cook in one of the sidelines. Black had this incredibly obscure drawing variation, which I won't show you. It's Houdini found this ridiculous sequence of moves it somehow draws for Black. Anyway, I've modified the problem. I've added a pawn at h2, which doesn't affect the problem too much. It saves the cook, and most of the variations are as Korolikov intended. Okay, take a look. It's white to play and win. Okay, so the first thing that you ought to realize is that black is actually threatening to checkmate white in this position. So if white plays something random, like queening his pawn on d8, then a black promotes with check to a knight. King a1 is the only move, and then knight b to d3, excuse me, knight d to b3 is checkmate. Okay, so that's not going to work. Excuse me. So the solution is rook to h5. So now here, black has two recaptures. If he captures with the bishop, then he ends up getting toasted by the queen, the pawn queening with check. Bishop to e7, throwing some wood in the way. Queen takes e7, king to h3, knight to f4 check, king takes h2, queen to h4 check, king to g1, queen to g3, king to f1, queen to g2, king to e1, queen to e2 mate. Okay, so the bishop recapture doesn't work. So after rook to h5 check, king to h5 is tried, and then knight to f4 check comes. Now black has a couple of moves at his disposal here. He can try king to h4, but that ends rather quickly after the pawn queens with check once again. Bishop to e7, queen takes e7 is checkmate. The other possibility after knight to h4 is king to g5, but this also doesn't work out for him. Pawn queens again, check. King takes f4, queen takes d2 check, bishop to e3, queen to d6 check, king to f3, queen to f6 check, king to g2. The pawn on c8 queens, and black tries to forestall mate by one move by promoting to a knight check. King takes a3, g3. The other pawn queens, knight to d3, queen to d5 check, bishop to e4, throwing wood in the way. Queen takes e4, king to g1, queen takes e3 check, knight to f2, queen takes g3, king to h1, queen to f3 checkmate. So after knight to f4, black's best try is instead king to h6. And that leads to the pawn on g8 promoting with check to a knight, king to h7. He can also try king to g5 here, but after the pawn promotes, basically the g5 square is mined. It's mate and 18 according to Houdini. I assume that you'll be okay in trusting me on that one. Okay, so instead black, after the knight promotes, excuse me, the pawn promotes on g8 check, king to h7, and here we go, knight g to f6, and again he can go to h8 here, but knight to g6 is checkmate, so not a good idea. Instead goes to h6. Now knight to g takes g4 check, king to h7. Again, if he goes to onto g5 after the pawn promotes on d8, then it's mate and 8. I won't show you that. So knight to g4 check. His only other move is king to h7. Knight to e to f6. And he has to stay away from the h-file because of the problems that we mentioned before with the pawn queening, and it's a quick mate. King to g7, knight to e6, check. King to f7. Well, okay, so we'll show you. If he goes to h8, for instance, the pawn queens, bishop to e8, queen takes e8, bishop takes f8, queen takes f8, it's checkmate. So after knight to e6 check, he has to go to f7, and then the pawn promotes to a knight, check, king to e7, and the final pawn promotes to a knight, check, and checkmate. So this was Korolikov's idea, and it's a beautiful and strange looking one. But despite the flaw in the problem, I thought it was worth bringing to you. And hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on a future installment. Thanks.